I have no problem with that. But you have spent more time talking about the system and how bad it is than talking about the people who are murdering people. Why are you unable to give it that same energy as I think the question Piers and I both have for you?
The healthcare executives that are murdering people?
In today's video, Taylor Lorenz absolutely destroys Tomi Lahren in a heated debate over violence, media narratives, and America's broken healthcare system. This Taylor versus Tomi showdown shows just how easily Taylor Lorenz dismantles the talking points of Tomi Lahren. Let's watch how Taylor Lorenz takes down Tomi Lahren in this must-see left versus right debate on Piers Morgan Uncensored.
So, Taylor, I've got to say, I watched this documentary that CNN put out, and I watched the material involving you, and I was pretty aghast at the tone that you took in relation to Luigi Mangione, because, as I pointed out on X, the guy is an effing cold-blooded killer, somebody who executed somebody who's a father of two, a business executive, and deserves nothing but public opprobrium and to be despised for what he did, notwithstanding any arguments about the current state of healthcare. So here's your chance to explain why you seem to be swooning over the guy.
Well, I think you would have to, take my comments completely out of context to say that I'm swooning over someone. If you watch the full clip and not just the part that you showed, you would see that I'm talking about the women that are standing outside Luigi's jail, showing up at court. I mean, unfortunately, Piers, I have bad news for you about America, which is that we have a culture that lionizes killers, and we give them Netflix shows, right? There's fangirls for Charles Manson, Jeffrey Dahmer, countless murderers, school shooters receive fandom and fan mail. Gypsy Rose Blanchard, who killed her mother, is a woman who received that. So, the idea that there are these cults of fandoms around killers is not something new in America. And what I was describing in that clip is basically the projection that these women are sort of placing on him, and how a lot of these women that do show up outside the court, view him. And actually what you might not hear me say, which is right, what I said right after that, which is that I do think that they're in for a rude awakening when Mangione starts actually talking, because I don't think he can live up to their fantasies. And I think that once he starts opening his mouth and talking about his beliefs, I think we might realize he's not as moral, of a person as we thought. He might have we don't know anything about his motivations, basically. So, that's
right.
what.
But when I was watching, but Taylor, when I was watching this with you and Donnie O'Sullivan from CNN, who I think he's an excellent reporter, but the tone that you were both adopting as he talked about this, I've got to say, it did not sit well with me. It was all very light-hearted, very frivolous, very, wow, isn't this all a bit of fun? Hey, these crazy girls are all swooning over Mangione and stuff. You're talking about a cold-blooded executioner. This is not somebody that should be viewed in a light-hearted way. I mean, do you regret now the tone that part of the interview was conducted in?
Well, listen, I mean, I think you can tone police all day long. Donnie and I spoke for over an hour about this. And what you're watching is a few seconds of a long conversation, and frankly, a long special that everybody should watch. I mean, I think what Donnie produced on CNN is a fantastic look at extremism in America. And Piers, I would, again, urge you to look at American culture. We are not a culture that treats serial killers or treats murderers or treats shooters the way that you are sort of speaking to it. And I agree with you. Should, every conversation about Luigi be, super serious because death is involved? Sure, maybe we should have a little bit more of a serious tone in some instances. But I don't think that my tone was a huge problem in that clip, because again, what I'm doing is sort of describing the fandom, which again, as I said to you as well, that doesn't mean that I agree with these girls that are showing up outside for God knows how many reasons, just the way that I don't agree with a lot of women that would send Charles Manson, love letters or selfies or whatever. I don't think that obviously, those two people had similar motivations for killing, but I'll just say again, we don't know why Luigi Mangione has not spoken. And I think that's what's so important to note when we see what people are projecting. So just as those women are projecting on Luigi, Piers, I would encourage you to actually listen to what I'm saying and not project.
Okay, but people will have heard you just now, literally like 2 minutes ago, call him Luigi, like he's some, pop star. He's not Luigi.
His name is
He's not
Luigi.
your buddy Luigi.
What did you call what?
You
That's his
don't
name.
talk
Piers.
about cold-blooded. So you call executioners Louis by their first name, like some pal.
Piers Morgan goes after Taylor Lorenz for using the name Luigi like it's some kind of nickname, but let's be honest, the media has done this for decades. Piers Morgan himself probably called Saddam Hussein Saddam 100 times on air, and nobody batted an eye. Taylor Lorenz saying, Luigi isn't the issue here, it's just a distraction. What really bothers Piers Morgan is that Taylor Lorenz is pointing to a bigger cultural problem. And instead of engaging with that, he fixates on tone and word choice. It's petty and it misses the point.
Gypsy Rose? You don't think people call people Gypsy Rose Blanchard? They call her Gypsy Rose. Is that a problem? How would you refer to these people? What name would you call them?
I'd probably call him Mangione when I'm talking about a bloke who's literally about to go to prison for the rest of his life for a cold-blooded execution.
I will refer to him.
Let me bring Tomi in, because Tommy's been pulling some exceptionally interesting facial expressions here. Tomi, it just seemed to me the tone. I mean, listen, Taylor can talk about tone police all she likes. The tone of what I watched was nauseating. How did you feel watching it?
Well, Piers, I have to go back to this very show. I think it was, a few months ago when we were on with Taylor, and she said that she understood the joy that some people felt when this United Healthcare CEO was murdered in cold blood on a New York City street. So I'm going back to that. So I find it hard, unless Taylor has had this remarkable change of heart. She was one of those fangirls, at least initially. So if she has had a change of heart, I would really love to hear it.
No, Tony, that's not what I said. What I said is that I felt joy that people like Piers, who have never had to deal with our barbaric healthcare system, were finally waking up to the problem in America. It does not bring me joy to see anybody doing shootings on the streets, because as somebody that's covered gun violence extensively, I understand that that's actually a very terrifying sign of a crumbling democracy, if people just feel like the only way to get their voice heard is through shooting. And I actually think that that's what Donnie's CNN special does very well. It unpacks the fact that so many people feel like violence is the only way to make rich people and people in power listen to them. That's concerning.
The word joy was used to describe in any way a murder, that some people are joyous, or that the fact that this conversation is being brought to the surface, people feel joy in that.
No, it was used to describe.
Well, you're happy that the conversation is being had, and it took somebody's death to bring it there. But I would also say this, Piers, when we're talking about. Yeah. And again, talking about privilege and talking about never having to experience a healthcare system, what I'm missing here, not just with Taylor, but with others that are fangirling or fanboying over Luigi Mangione, is y'all realize, right, that this is a privileged kid. This is not a kid that comes from the inner city. He doesn't come from Appalachia living in a trailer home. This is a privileged kid who murdered, by all accounts, a man who does come from humble beginnings, who was a husband and a father. And it's so bizarre to me that the left is taking this tone. It's not just with this case, it's with so many. It's like, if you agree with the end goal here, if you agree that the healthcare system is bad, or if you look at what happened in Frisco, Texas with Carmelo Anthony, who is accused of stabbing a 17-year-old at a track meet, they're like, oh, well, it was a white kid. Oh, if you vandalize or firebomb a Tesla dealership, it's okay because we hate Elon. There's always a but. There's always an excuse. And the same thing when President Trump has had 2 assassination attempts on his life. The left is like, oh, well, we don't like assassinations, but we understand it. But he's a Nazi. Why is this the continued narrative from the left? It's pretty twisted.
Well, Tomi, can I just say something? I agree. I agree that we're in a very scary time where I would argue on the left and the right, we're seeing increasingly violent rhetoric. And that's actually exactly what Donnie's entire CNN special is about. It's about the fact that people on the left and right both feel that they cannot operate within the bounds of our democratic system to get change. And so increasingly, you're seeing people, again, on both the left and the right, turning to violence or advocating for violence. And I think that as anybody that cares about democracy should be concerned about that. And instead of tone policing, they should try to understand the outrage that people feel. I actually think the right has done a good job of speaking to people's outrage. I think Donald Trump does a good job of harnessing people's outrage. But I think that What we need to pay attention to is the outrage across the political system and say, hey, why are so many people standing killers? Why is one of the biggest memes on the internet about assassinating the president? Why don't we ask those questions and try to understand those things rather than having, freakouts about the tone of a 2-second CNN clip?
Taylor Lorenz doesn't just say violence is wrong. She says it over and over. Yet Tomi Lahren and Piers Morgan keep pushing the same question, like they didn't hear her at all. It's not a debate at that point, it's performance. What Taylor Lorenz is doing on Piers Morgan Uncensored is trying to shift the conversation to why people are angry, why some feel unheard, and why certain acts of violence, while never justified, are getting this kind of attention. But Tomi Lahren isn't interested in causes only condemnation. And let's talk about that Tesla point. Like, Tomi Lahren acts like damaging a car is the same as domestic terrorism. Taylor Lorenz never said people should be lighting Teslas on fire, but somehow everything becomes a culture war. Piers Morgan and Tomi Lahren both ignore the most basic truth Taylor Lorenz is trying to highlight when people are desperate. When systems fail them, some react with rage. The smarter conversation is, how do we prevent that? But instead, Piers Morgan Uncensored becomes a loop of outrage clips missing the depth. Taylor Lorenz, at least, is trying to have the uncomfortable conversation most people would rather avoid. Whether you agree with her or not, you can't say Taylor Lorenz is dodging the issue. She's confronting it head on, something neither Tomi Lahren nor Piers Morgan seemed willing to do. What do you think? Do you side with Tomi and Piers on this, or are you more in line with Taylor's perspective? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you got something out of this breakdown, give it a like, hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.